BKL Nightly. Now, this is the Tuesday edition. I'm Thad Brown. I'm joined by Carl Jones. Now, Carl and I have been doing this for a couple years. We call it Let's Talk Ball, and we're still going to use that title here and there. But we're going to do it with all the bright lights, all the fancy graphics from the BKL family, and kind of link us all together. For those who have not seen this show before, what we do is we go through the all-22 film, the X's and the O's, break it all down from every Bills game, find different observations and different things about the game that you don't notice when you watch it on the TV version. And this happens all the time. It goes good, it goes bad. You see all kinds of different stuff. So we will do this every single Tuesday, most of the time, depending when the game is. But this will be this half-hour version of BKL Nightly. So, Carl, let me just start with this. Look, this was an amazing game for a lot of different reasons. When you went back to the film, just overall, I know the first 50 plus minutes looked terrible for the Bills and the last 10 were great. Give me the thing that kind of stood out about how you thought this game might go on film that might have been different than what you actually saw when you sat down and broke it down.
You know what I'm about to say, because I say it damn near every single week. The film is never as good as you think it is, and is never as bad either. And exclude Josh Allen from this, because I honestly think he was as good as what I felt in the moment. But even when you watch the receivers back, you're like, oh, okay, some of this is just soft coverage from the Ravens. Then you look at the defensive side of the ball, you're like, oh, okay, it wasn't every single play they're getting mauled. There were some bright spots here and there. So not as good, not as bad, somewhere in the middle of how I feel about the Bills' performance Sunday night.
The thing that stood out to me is I kind of spent this whole game searching for the silver bullet answer to what happened on both sides of the ball. For the offense, it was, well, what was the thing they were doing that looked like it was close to working, and then suddenly it would work, and then everything exploded and it was great. And that wasn't the answer. It was just they did a couple small things late. And then on defense, what changed that allowed the Bills to stop the run late and get off the field? Well, a couple guys just started playing better. I mean, sometimes it's just that simple. And we'll go through the different sides of the ball and break it all down. Now, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. And there's a lot of things we want to get into, but you brought it up with number 17 and all the different plays he made. And it's funny, when I walked away from the game, I was kind of, okay, it was a really good Josh Allen game, but we see those all the time. It didn't really stand out to me. And then you posted that breakdown on X. At Jones11_ by the way, of the different Josh Allen throws. And that opened my eyes. And then when I went through the film, my eyes were further opened. It was really a really good Josh Allen game.
Yeah, for those at home, when I watch the all-22, I played defense my entire life. So I start on that side of the ball. But for this one, it was a little different. I think watched the first 3 plays of the Ravens. I said, what am I doing? Let me go back and watch what Josh Allen did. And from the first touchdown of the game, putting it right between the 8 and the 6 on Dalton Kincaid's jersey, he was in that zone. Obviously, there was a bit of a lull in between second and third quarter, but then that 2-minute drive, well, not even 2 minutes, that 30-second drive, 30 second, right at the end of the half, he was in that zone to where only few players on planet Earth can get to. I mean, we're talking about off platform, wrong foot, wrong angles. I will say this, any kid at home, high school kid, college kid, do not watch Josh Allen's film on Sunday night and think that is what you should ever do. You can't do that. You're not him. You're not as big as him. You don't have the arm talent. That's the type of performance he put on Sunday night, to where, every single throw wasn't tight window necessarily, but the audacity to pull off some of those throws, I'm like, yeah, there's maybe 3 players on planet Earth who can try that.
The end of the half stuff was the one that stuck out for me. You're rolling left, throwing across your body, 25, 30 yards downfield. Now, Khalil Shakir was pretty open. That's still a throw. I don't care if there's no one else on the field. That's a tough throw to make. The one after that, to Dalton Kincaid, which is a great schemed-up play by Joe Brady, that's still a small window to hit. I mean, he was doing that over and over and over. The Ty Johnson play that was incomplete in the end zone, that's a ridiculous throw that Ty Johnson probably has to catch. So, I don't know. We really should have kept track of the best Josh Allen games, so we could say for sure, I think we'd slot this in at number 6.5. But this to me might have been on the Mount Rushmore of really good Josh Allen games. There were 2 or 3 throws that were interceptable that I would question. And I think some of that, you talked about the lull. Carl, there was a point on the field where I felt like Josh Allen was carrying this offense more than you would want him to. And watching it on film was the same way. The middle 2 quarters of this game, to me, were the Bills hoping Josh Allen could do something wild or they'd be off the field, and that was it.
Yeah, I honestly feel like, to a certain extent, they gave the Ravens too much respect. And obviously, on paper, the Ravens have a fantastic defense, and I think that will be a good unit over the next 17 weeks. But you got to show me a little bit. And I know the first drive they walked down the field, and then hey, they almost threw an interception that same drive. But there was a lot of like, hey, we're going to play it safe offensively. I'm not even talking about the running game. The Bills' running game is what's going to make this offense go. But there are a lot of like, hey, we're not pushing the ball down the field, not even giving them options to do so. I'm not going to say scared, but like they just gave him a little too much respect, especially when you got 17 at quarterback. You play the game on your terms, not the other way around. And that fourth quarter rolled around, and Joe Brady remembered who he had at quarterback.
You were right, though. The Bills did not really push the ball down the field too much. Now, in the fourth quarter, I think one of the very early plays in that quarter and one of the really good throws from Josh Allen we haven't mentioned was the Keon Coleman throw on the sideline. I think it was, short of cover 3. Regardless, I think the Ravens felt like they had it covered, and Josh put it up high, and Keon Coleman went up and made the catch. Coleman was the receiving star of this game, at least numbers-wise. Right. Give me your take on what Keon Coleman's first game of what might be a pivotal season was for him on film.
Yeah, heading into that fourth quarter, I think he had 1 catch. So it's crazy how 15 minutes of game time can change your opinion on a player's performance. I'll say this. For those who haven't listened to this program in the past, I've felt that someone with Keon Coleman's archetype, or someone who is a big guy, pretty athletic, but doesn't separate well, doesn't have that juice to do so, is best used as a power slot because the narrow path to be great on the outside is so slim. Super duper slim. We're talking about DeAndre Hopkins type guys, and that's 100 percentile outcome. I think in the way that the Bills utilize him in the fourth quarter, and part of this is how the Ravens play defense. If you utilize him in a curl, an outbreaker, or like deep overs, that is perfect for him because you're not necessarily asking him to separate. You're not asking him to run the complete route tree. If you keep him within those 3 routes, he's going to be a player like, I saw someone tweet this earlier, and I don't want to steal it, but I can't remember who said it. Courtland Sutton reminds me of that. Courtland Sutton is not running the entire route tree, but when you ask him to do a 9-ball, outbreakers, curls, deep overs, that little post slant he ran on that final drive of the game. If Keon Coleman can do that, he'll be a really, really good receiver for this specific offense. It's when you ask him to do other things, I have questions and concerns. And you saw that the first 3 quarters of the game. I think the fourth quarter, utilize him like that. More of that, I think, will go a long way to success this season.
I'm with you. The Keon Coleman film in this game didn't look all that much different than the Keon Coleman film from last year. There wasn't a whole lot of separation. And I don't think people should ever expect that from him. That was never his game. He came into the NFL as a guy who's open when he's not open. And, you have to operate that because he's not open a lot. That's just not what he does. And although the Bills got him 8 receptions, obviously one was a ball that bounced off Dawson Knox's hands. You talk about some of the other routes, though. The Bills used him outside the numbers, roots breaking to the sideline a lot. Easy stuff underneath. There wasn't a whole lot of Keon, going one-on-one with Jair Alexander or Marlon Humphrey or whatever and finding some space, but it was the Bills creating space for him, and that can make him effective. But I think we need to remember that that's going to be limited. You're not going to get A.J. Brown. You're not going to get DeAndre Hopkins in your prime. This is a guy that you have to kind of manage, at least at this point in his career. I thought the whole was a little bit encouraging. The one thing that bothered me, Carl, was the 2-point conversion, and here's why. The one where he stepped out of bounds, not the one where he lost the fade ball. And I know people talked about Josh Allen's placement. We'll talk about that in a second, too. In training camp, I watched Keon Coleman make the same play, the same situation, a 2-point drill at Fisher, running a route where he ran it straight at the goalpost and bent out to the right, where he stepped on the end line on the route and then came back in and made a catch. The same play, and refs were there and threw a flag on it. That's the thing that maddens me about Keon Coleman sometimes. I know the Bills raved about what he's been doing off the field, but the knucklehead stuff has got to go away. He had a drop earlier in the game on what was going to be a quick screen, a play that Joe Brady said he wanted to just get him into a flow. If you can get that out, and like you said, use the buckets that work for him otherwise, I think he can be pretty effective. But we saw more of that again on Sunday night.
We did. I think the details of his game is what's going to have to be refined going forward. But if you bucket him into just a specific archetype instead of trying to ask him to be everything. If Bills fans are expecting this to be some well-rounded all-around receiver, that's just not who he is. You don't really get those guys in the second round anyway. Those are the guys who get taken in the top 10. Even Lat McConkey, who is a fabulous receiver, has a bucket in how the Chargers utilize him, right? So once again, deep outs, curls, overs. Don't ask him to run double moves. We're not asking him to run dig routes. We're not asking him to run quick slants consistently. Keep him in that world. I think it could work out. Just make sure we stay in that world. Everything else, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
It's all right. When you have this offense, you have 17, you have an option to where your number one receiver can be a guy that is not going to be able to be effective everywhere on the field. Another receiver that has been a little bit of a topic of conversation this offseason because he's brand new is Josh Palmer. And let me tell you, he was impressive. You know, it wasn't every single snap, but there were 2 or 3 where he totally cooked a defender. The deep ball into the end zone that Josh Allen missed over his head, Jair Alexander is 3 yards behind on that play. The pass interference play was another one where Josh Palmer got on a defensive back and blew by him quick. He did that also for the play near the end of the game that set up what was the game-winning field goal. I love the fact that Palmer can change speeds and attack that way. Look, again, he's not going to do it over and over and over, but that ability to separate even maybe once a quarter, I think is a ridiculous improvement upon what the Bills have been using at receiver the last few years with Josh Allen.
You know how we just said Keon Coleman needs to stick in the bucket because he can't do certain stuff? But inverse it for Josh Palmer. I don't know if I want to ask Josh Palmer to do some of these stuff Keon Coleman does, but I mentioned double moves. That's Josh Palmer's bucket. That's actually the move he cooked Jair Alexander on with the deep overthrow in the end zone. I wouldn't mind him running those slants. I wouldn't mind him running a pivot route, things of that nature, because his game is separation. I was encouraged with what I saw with him. There was an idea when he got signed in the offseason from us on the outside, like, okay, what kind of player is Josh Palmer? We see the separation statistics. We saw the stuff on film from Los Angeles. Man, it'd be really cool if they implemented it here. And in week 1, they did exactly what we saw in Los Angeles. And that's super, super encouraging going forward because now they can add upon that. And the fact that they're not asking him to do something that he never done before. No, he's not going to get 80 yards every single week. But in moments, we're like, hey, we need to dial up a double move. Or like, hey, it's 3rd and 6. We got to go deep in our bag to get this play call. That's where Josh Palmer is going to be utilized.
And I was very excited. You know, the dimensions that opens up, you know, to be able to just say, you go win on this gotta have it play. Most Bills gotta have it plays have been Josh Allen or bust. And now at least you have, you know, another option that you can work with. One of the reasons Josh Allen's been so effective is that the offensive line has been ridiculously good the last 2 years. They were not good in this game. Now, a big chunk of that is the opponent on the other side. Madubuike is ridiculous to begin with. He's one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL. And I think Baltimore is going to go pretty deep in terms of pass rushers. When you go Van Noy, rookie Mike Green, OA's pretty good. You know, they're even Aeneas Peoples, by the way, is one of my draft crushes low in the draft. I didn't realize he went to Baltimore. I'm watching film like, who's that? Oh, there's my guy Peoples making plays. Look at that. So there were players on this team. But on the flip side, it wasn't like they were rolling out TJ Watt or Nick Bosa, too. The upper end of these guys, in terms of what they can do against the pass, is not ridiculous. How concerned were you kind of looking at what the offensive line did? Let's start with just against the pass so far.
I wasn't all too concerned because they gave them problems in the second half of that game in the postseason last year. The same type of issues where they got different body types that the Bills necessarily don't see week to week. So I'm not all too concerned about what they got going on. That Bills offensive line has been a top 5 unit, at least for the better part of 14 months at this point. So I'm not all too concerned with that. They will get another stiff test in terms of different body types and with the Jets this week. So we'll see how much they improve in that department. But my alarm bells weren't ringing from the pass game. The run game, though, was a little concerning because dating back even to that Chiefs game where they weren't able to consistently run it on their terms. That second half of the Baltimore game, they weren't able to do it either. Those are 2 really good defenses in terms of the run. All right, we need to see it against New York and make sure that's just those 2 teams that give you problems, not a symptom of a season-long issue.
Yeah, I think this Jets defense, and really the Jets on both sides of the ball, we'll talk about the offense in a minute too, is a great follow-up test because they're like Baltimore light in a lot of ways, where they can do a lot of similar things, but not nearly at the same level. And you're right. You know, you talk about different body types. Mike Green's a little, you know, smaller, quicker. Madubuike is like a big thumper. Van Noy looks more like a linebacker. We go to the Jets this week. Jermaine Johnson's a big, thicker, more I'm going to win with my hands. Will McDonald on the other edge is going to be faster, a little more of the Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter mold, not at that level, but he's pretty good. So Quinton Williams is that big tackle in the middle. So the Bills will get another good test like that. In terms of individually, Osiris Torrance, I didn't think had a great game, but he saw Madubuike most of the game. I'm going to totally excuse that. The one that does, I don't want to say concerns me, Deion Dawkins had one of his worst games I've seen him have in a long time. And it wasn't against one guy or one move. It was a lot of the game. I had Deion down for 3 pressures allowed, or I'm sorry, 4 by himself, and then 3 in a tandem with Mike Edwards against stunts. He just wasn't good top to bottom. Now, he's not nearly old enough to where you think, well, maybe he reached the end of his career or the backside. And maybe if you want to look at his career as a mountain, he might be like just over the peak on his way down. But regardless, this was bad enough. You talk about alarm bells. They weren't all ringing, but there was one where I'm like, I want to see a good game on him next week.
I'm not going to draw back on this as anything definitive, but I remember that Abdul Carter preseason game against Deion Dawkins where everyone was like, whoa, that was more so about Abdul Carter than Deion Dawkins, just because he's a rookie and you're like, oh my gosh, he might be exactly what we thought he was coming out of the draft. But yeah, for this offense to function, they're going to need 73 to be an elite pass protector that he's been over the better part of 2 years. And he can't really dip down from that because we've talked about all offseason, saw a little bit in week 1 as well. They don't have the upper echelon elite talent everywhere else to necessarily week to week not have a really strong group up front. So yeah, I'm gonna be locked in as well to see if this was just a blimp or just maybe a symptom of, once again, something going forward.
Most likely it's just a blip. You know, the Deion's had enough of a career to believe that too. So I'm optimistic for sure going forward, but this was something that was jarring to watch on film. One more note on the offense. I thought Joe Brady did a nice job adjusting late. I thought during the game and much of his passing scheme was widening zones to try and find spaces in the middle. That wasn't working because the Ravens could drop so many numbers deep while they were rushing 4. Towards the end of the game, he got outside the numbers, was able to find some release valve type throws, and I thought it was a key thing to do moving forward. I didn't like Brady's overall game in terms of what he brought this year as opposed to last year. It didn't seem like, Carl, there was a whole lot new. Give me like 30 seconds on what you thought the Brady game plan overall looked like.
I mean, I touched on it a little bit earlier. I think they just gave the Ravens too much respect. I think they truly did. And yeah, Jair Alexander's name looks great on paper. Uzier's name looks good on paper. But boy, y'all gonna have to show me in the year 2025 that y'all still got it. And Uzier, honestly, I think looks solid. He's gonna be their CB2 going forward if Jair doesn't fix this thing. Because in that fourth quarter, Jair looked rough. And I know he's been out with the knee injury. By January, if he looks good, I'm not saying, hey, he gets the red dot treatment. By the way, on this program, the red dot treatment means when you're in film and coach circles a guy, that means we barbecue chicken alert. Let's go after him. Jair's not at that point yet. But in that game, in that fourth quarter, he got that treatment. So I just think he gave them way too much respect. And he should have put the ball in 17's hands a little bit earlier on in that game to open things up.
All right, let's move to the defensive side of the ball. And this will be an easy start. Let's handle the stuff that was good. This won't take very long. Ed Oliver, and maybe that was it. There were other things too, but look, Ed Oliver's game was as good rewatching as it was the first time. He was active, you know, beyond just the plays that stood out. He was a problem just about every single series, at least 1 or 2 snaps. And the things that went bad for the Bills, you know, largely weren't really his fault. He was just, you know, one of many faces being caught up in the Derrick Henry avalanche.
Yeah, I think of that big long run, the one that Dorian Strong.
Which one? I'm sorry. Which one are we talking about?
Right, the one where Dorian Strong had the nice tackle right at the goal line. Ed Oliver actually makes a hell of a play from the backside defensive tackle position to push this guy down there. If he got any help, we're talking about Ed Oliver making a phenomenal play for his run stuff. But he was everything and then some. I mean, everything he was doing was on the backside as well, which is super impressive. We talk about a player who's great in penetration, getting off the ball, and that showed up to a T, especially in that second half where zone schemes, hey, that tackle needs to reach you in order to make this block effective. You're getting off the ball so quick it doesn't matter. That Derrick Henry forced fumble at the end of the game, that's a power concept where that tackle needs to reach you so you don't get across his face. No, I'm so quick off the ball it doesn't matter. Those are the plays where you see and you're like, man, where has that been? Where has that been in the postseason the past couple of years? Because that's a level that he got to Sunday night that few players can have been at in the NFL, period. And I'm not saying this is going to be a week-to-week thing. He's year 8 at this point. He might be who he is. This is an up-and-down player. But if he can tap into more of that, especially in the postseason, I'm sure the Bills would have went a little bit further in the past previous trips to the postseason.
One of the things I was thinking is that the Bills added all these extra pieces on the D-line all year to make it better, right? And really, the easiest, most likely way to make it better is just Ed Oliver playing like this guy more often, like we saw back in 2023, where he was doing it week after week after week. And, end of the game, he basically ended this game on his own, had the fumble, of course, had the big stop on the first play of the last drive that got the Ravens behind the stick. So he was amazing play in and play out. But we've talked about that before. Let's talk about some of the things that were problems. And for me, it begins with pretty much everybody else who was on that defensive line. Look, number one, I've always been a Daquan Jones fan. I've thought his game is fantastic. He got single blocked way too many times in this game. I mean, if you're going to get blocked, at least take two guys with you to free up a linebacker. It happens so little. Poor Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard were eating offensive linemen all game long, at least for 3 quarters. To DQ's credit, he stepped up big time on that drive after the punt with about 9 minutes to go, made 2 incredible plays to where I'm running down on my notes, where the heck was this the rest of the game? If somehow that's how Daquan Jones is going to play, the Bills' run defense will be fine. But I've got 3 quarters of evidence that says otherwise. Beyond that, Deion Walker was not nearly as good as you would hope. I mean, he's a rookie, long way to go, tough offense, etc. TJ Sanders was irrelevant against the run. I mean, they're just, Carl, there was nothing else against the run in this game, linebackers included too, scheme, everything, to where you thought that this run defense is going to be anything, worth talking about this year.
When you're watching the game live, and this is real because I remember playing defensive back, and coach always tells you, hey, when we give up a big play, the people at home aren't going to care about the fact that the front 7 didn't do their job, because they see you chasing, or they see you getting your head dribble off the ground. That's happened to me too. So like, they see you. When you're able to watch the all 22 back and watch the film, you're like, ooh, I mean, yeah, their safeties weren't great, but Derrick Henry getting 10 yards of steam untouched isn't good for nobody. Like, Derrick Henry can't go untouched on a football play 10 yards down the field. I don't care what safety you are. That is not conducive. That's not helpful for anybody out there. I didn't think that was great. Terrell Bernard, he's a smaller guy, so obviously he's going to knife around blocks instead of take them on head on. Same thing with Matt Milano. He didn't do a good job of knifing around. A lot of that is due to the fact that you just mentioned the offensive linemen were getting to the second level too quickly, too easy. But boy, I mean, TJ Sanders, I saw him get hooked a little bit. They've invested a lot into their pass rush, and rightfully so. That has been the number one problem in the postseason. But styles make fights, like I said at the beginning of this show. And this particular style, your pass rush, I don't want to say is irrelevant, but is 1A and 1B with your run defense, because the Ravens are going to run the ball down your throat. And it been a problem for the Bills defense the last 3 matchups, the regular season. In the postseason, they didn't stop the run either. They just were able to turn the ball over, so the Ravens were playing from behind a lot of that second half. It's a legit issue that the Bills have to figure a workaround if they were to see this team again in the postseason.
And one of the other concerns for me with this is that look at the 6 guys they added, right? You want to make the run D better, so you bring new guys in. Okay, that's fine. We can do that. Michael Hoyt and Larry Ogunjobi aren't going to be here until Halloween, but neither of those guys are better against the run than the pass anyway. Joey Bosa for sure is a run first guy. A pass first guy. Landon Jackson's a run first guy, but he's inactive, so he's not good enough to be on your group that's going to be on the field for Sunday. That leaves Deion Walker and Sanders. Even Sanders' draft profile was pass 1, run 2, and Deion Walker's supposed to be a run stopper. But Carl, what have we seen from him all preseason? Much better pass rush than run stopping. So I've gone through the 6 guys you've added, and none of them seem like they're going to have an impact against this run game.
And that's where you're like, okay, but can we scheme around it? I promise you, for the people at home, the Bills have played the Ravens 3 times over the past 12 months or so. They have thrown the kitchen sink in different ways in trying to slow down the Ravens' running game. To be fair, the Ravens have a unique run game. When you have a generational quarterback with a freakazoid at running back, you're not going to shut down everything. But I say this about the postseason, and I will say about this Ravens matchup. There is a difference between playing generational talent and allowing them, and at the same time, allowing that same offense to have historic days against you time and time again. You can go up against a great opponent and trade blows here and there. There's another thing between giving up a performance where Lamar Jackson had a 99 percentile EPA performance. Those are 2 different worlds, and you can't exist in that way. They have to figure out some way. I don't get paid the big bucks to figure it out, but they got to fix this, because you're going to see some iteration of this team once again later on in the year, and you got to be able to stop them.
All right, let's talk about the secondary quickly here. They didn't get tested a whole lot because they didn't have to be. A couple of big passes, I think, were schemed up more than, one-on-one losses. But Dorian Strong making his first start. Give me your read on what his first game was like against the Ravens.
I said it on X yesterday, but solid. I don't think that he had many opportunities to show his strengths coming out of college. I thought that he did a good job of plastering the Zay Flowers on that one Lamar Jackson. He's rolling right and throws it out the backside of the end zone. When you're playing him against Lamar, it's the second and third play that's going to beat you. The holding penalty, it is what it is. Keep your hands off of him. The big miscommunication on the Zay Flowers catch and run, I believe it was like 39 yards down the field. Got to make sure our eyes are in the right place. We don't need to be looking at anything else. But it's a good concept by the Ravens offense. I would say it's something to build off of. And if you're the Bills coaches, he didn't look like a deer in headlights. I think that's where you can say, yes, we like what we saw out of the Rook.
Totally agree with you on the Strong call. Again, it wasn't tested a ton, but, when what he did looked very competent and something that can easily get better. Cole Bishop, I don't know if was the same way. You talk about deer in headlights. I'm not going to go there. The kid deserves to be in the NFL, but there were a few times that the game looked a little too big for him. Granted, tackling Derrick Henry literally looks that way, but it wasn't a great start for Cole Bishop this year, I thought.
He's a player who his attributes and skill sets is best near the line of scrimmage. We saw, if you look at his Utah film, I don't think he made a play further than like 10 yards down the field, which isn't a knock. Like you're not going to, not everyone's like some deep safety, but that was his profile coming out. And when you play up against a team like the Ravens, where like, hey, we need guys to bring guys down near the line of scrimmage, or hey, let's prevent a touchdown saving play. He really wasn't there to make those plays. And that's where it's like, we've seen him play twice against the Ravens now, because remember, I believe Cole Bishop, Taylor Rapp left that game last year in the regular season.
Yes.
And he didn't look great in that game either. He's a rookie, I get it. But your strengths are supposed to be your player where we can use you all over the box within that 10 yards of within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Got to start to show up a little bit. And that's where it's a little concerning. Taylor Rapp didn't play well either. I'm not going to put this all on Cole Bishop. Taylor Rapp had some plays where like, buddy, I know he's Derrick Henry, but we got to take a better angle here, or like we got to bring him down to the ground. Even in the passing game, that deep play to Christian Benford, hell of a play by D-Hop. I mean, you just tip your cap to him. But I would like my deep safety to get their attack quicker, So, yeah, I don't think neither safety played well, and I'm not going to get into conversations on safety room, bring someone else in. I don't know. I just know Sunday night, that has to be fixed, and it's not acceptable going forward, I'm sure.
I thought Taylor Rapp was kind of like chasing, he's like trying to catch up for what everybody else is having a problem with. But you're right, it wasn't a great game. The other thing with Cole Bishop, two plays that stood out. Number one, two of the long Derrick Henry runs. One where he kind of over pursued and almost took himself out of the play. Like, I'm going to just turn it inside. I'm not going to try and make a tackle. And then the second touchdown, he was outran to the pylon, which, look, he's not a ridiculously fast safety. But that's a play you want your safety to make, especially with Derrick Henry going out the gate left and right. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. Next week, Bills and Jets. Like we said, Ravens light be a great test. But once again, you can find us here every single Tuesday. For Carl Jones, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching the Let's Talk Ball version of BKL Nightly. We will see you again coming up next week, talking Bills.